So in this podcast, we're going to take a look at medium mechs. And from a generalized perspective, ask ourselves the question, how do these mechs operate? What are their role? And in terms of a checklist, if we're looking to add mechs to our lances or acquire tech for our collection, what are some of the considerations that we should apply to the various tech manuals in figuring things out? Now, medium mechs are in a very, very interesting position. And I would say they are the most dangerous for the mech warrior, for the player, for the mech commander, you and I, mechs to play. Because certainly you can hunt light mechs and you can easily destroy light mechs, assuming that you can catch some of the faster mechs. But toe-to-toe, or if you're forced with a confrontation, you could always get critted. Welcome to Battletech. But the difference in armor, in weight, and in weapon profiles, look at something like the Griffin. We've got a PPC, we've got a long-range missile pack, we've got mobility on there. Two pretty good primary weapons, decent damage. How is a Locust or any of the other bug-type mechs, the Wasp, the Stinger, how is that going to go toe-to-toe with a medium mech? Not that you're supposed to go toe-to-toe, but you don't have to kind of worry about getting caught by a light mech. Where if you're playing a light mech, you got to worry about everybody catching you. I mean, that's the role of recon. That's the role of kind of a skirmish type thing. But the danger and the duality here is now everyone's afraid of assault mechs. But as we move up for going up against, if we had to, going up against heavy mechs, the lower end spectrum of heavy mechs and the higher end spectrum of medium mechs. You know, in Battletech, we have this weight class, this distinction. But there are certain mechs, and as we get up to the higher values and the lower values, where the lines are really, really blurred. And you see some of these mechs on the table, some of the lighter, heavy mechs, they can almost perform in the same role as a medium mech, still being a heavy mech. And likewise, some of the medium mechs that are on the heavier spectrum, you look at them on the table if you weren't aware, and you're like, this almost plays like a heavy mech. So it's very tempting, or it's easy to see this idea where you're going to say, okay, as a medium mech, a heavier medium mech, I will go up against a heavy mech. I mean, I could. I wouldn't say I'd want the task, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do. If I was taking my Griffin and going up against a Warhammer, how long am I going to last? And this is the deception, because I could put out some decent hurt on a heavy mech, and I have just enough armor where I could take a couple of hits. Not that I want to just sit there and slog away, but I could take a few hits on there. But it's going to go and fold very, very, very fast if you go up against the weapons output of a heavy mech. And certainly assault mechs are in a different category. So we need to be careful. We have this duality of the light mechs are running all over the place and we can't catch them. The heavy mechs want to engage you, because I'll go toe-to-toe, we'll pound at each other, and it's deceptive to want to do that or possibly do that. So what role do medium mechs have? Those are the two traps on there. Now that we've avoided that, medium mechs make an ideal bodyguard mech. Now, certainly there are mechs that are suited for open combat. There are mechs suited for kind of hills and dense woods. There are mechs for city fight. Let's look at, we have to look at it. We have to bring up an autocannon 20, because my number one Battletech philosophy is big guns never tire. You can have your plans, you can have your fancy lance builds, you can do whatever you want on the table. I throw down 246 AC-20s and I get them up there aggressively. I bring the Duke of Death in my narrative campaign. That is my AC-20 urban mech. I throw them right up there. I mean, we got autocannon 20s on everything, everywhere. Getting off topic on that, we're going to look at the Hunchback. Because the Hunchback is interesting because it has an AC-20. It's well encamped in that medium mech area. It wants to do city fight. It does. But the Hunchback's a little bit misleading because it's got good mobility. It's got decent armor. And it has the potential to hit pretty hard. So you're like, look, I want to get up there. I want to go up against that Warhammer. I'll throw down on that Marauder and start blasting away. And you can. But the armor's not going to hold. It's going to fold really, really fast, and then you're down in initiative. So where something like the Hunchback, and this is a great example of a bodyguard mech, medium mechs in a well-rounded lance or in a multi-lance game are the ultimate bodyguard mechs. And what I mean by that is they attach themselves within 2 or 3 hexes to a heavy, or an assault mech. Now, obviously, if we're playing the heavy spectrum, I could take an assault mech and bodyguard it with a medium mech. This is a fundamental Battletech tactic, this idea of a wingman or a bodyguard on there. But if we're looking at a spread out lance, the medium attaches itself to the assault or the heavy mech. Stays 2 or 3, 4 hexes within that radius. In Battletech, I have this terminology, danger close. This is where we are now 2 or 3 hexes. Your mech, your heavy mech, your assault mech, and my heavy and assault mech, we're jockeying for position. We're looking to get elevation. We're moving back and forth. But now we are point blank. We are there. We are at short range. We are engaging medium lasers at short range. We are engaging everything. We have the potential to push and go into punching and kicking or charging. You really can't pull away, because once a mech backpedals, unless it has an incredible, a light mech, but a light mech, you're not going to backpedal. You're just going to boost and get out of there. You're stuck. If I break off, all the forward-facing guns on the opposing heavy or assault mech are just going to savage me. Likewise, I really can't turn left or right. We want to stay face-to-face. So this means on the table, there's this kind of invisible line. We're locked. This is where the medium mech, the bodyguard mech, now moves to the left or to the right, gets side or rear armor. And rear armor on a medium mech with enough weapons, usually they have something like a PPC, something with a primary 10-point spread, or they have multiple smaller systems of, AC5s. Look at something like the Wolverine. It's got a little bit of a bite in there. It's got the jumps. It's got the mobility. You get that Wolverine behind a heavy mech, and you've got your heavy mech facing the heavy mech, savaging it with everything. You got the medium mech behind it, shooting, punching, kicking. That gets you rear armor, and that's going to help fold or now divide the attention of that heavy or assault mech that you're facing on there. On the way in, you're laying down some fire, as we approach this danger close. You're supporting the heavy mech, you're supporting the assault mech, you're taking targets of opportunity. That's how it works as its own lance mate, tandem. I find another role for medium mechs to be that of a sniper mech. And what I mean by that in terms of terminology is medium mechs are in an interesting place because they mount this interesting combination of enough primary weapon damage. So we see PPCs, AC-10. So you start to see 10 points of damage or greater. They've got some ranged packs, LRM packs, 10, 15 on there. And they have smaller multiples of medium lasers and stuff. You've got some bite. You've got some dice presence on the table. Combine that usually with jump jets. That's a secondary question. Is it worth taking a medium mech without jump jets? And then they have armor. Now, obviously, there's some mechs like the Vulcan, which are super specialized. We'll kind of put that aside for a second. That's in the same category as the Firestarter. There's and the Charger as an assault mech, Scout Assault. There are classifications of mechs within each spectrum that are so focused, they break all the rules. But if we go back to looking at the Griffin, that's a sniper mech in that it has the speed and jump to get into position, usually on the sides of the table, the flanks, the left or the right. So this way, you can try to get some motive hits on vehicles if you're doing combined arms. You can kind of work on side shots on a mech or maybe rear armor if it gets on there and start kind of working on that. But the idea is it has the speed and the mobility to get into place, and in the case of the Griffin, hit you with that PPC. That's got the range. It's got bite. Hit you with that LRM 10-pack. It's got the range. It's got the bite. It's not something that you can ignore, and it has the ability to now pull back and get out of there. So almost like this mobile suit, right? This idea of like running around, running gun, jumping, and everything. I find as a single role, if I'm going to take a mech and not attach it to a lance, or I'm going to break from the lance, and it has to work solo, it works solo in that sniper role. If I'm going to keep it attached to my lance, then it is a bodyguard type mech in there. And in the case of this Hunchback, if we get that Hunchback, usually I pair my Hunchback with a Warhammer. Yes, admittedly, there probably is a better combination for the Hunchback and the heavy mech, but the Warhammer is so iconic. I love the model. I love the history. I love the mech. I've been playing it since like 89. I just love it. So I find that a great thing because on the way in, this idea of on the way in, I've got the PPCs barking off. Then when we get close, danger close, because I'm going to get that Warhammer up there. And the Warhammer heat management aside, a lot of the unseen have heat issues on there. The heat issues aside, I have the Warhammer's interesting because I have the firepower to really open up at danger close. We've got the SRM 6-pack for crit seeking. We've got the lasers on there. Heck, I'm going to fire off the machine guns. It's just going to be everything on there. We'll switch from PPCs to lasers, machine guns, missiles, all that type of stuff. But I don't have the armor to sit there and go toe-to-toe with an assault mech or a heavy mech. Not that we ever want to do that, but the Warhammer needs to be it's under-armored. We really need to be mindful of the armor on there. That's when, the Widowmaker, the Haymaker, the Hunchback, that's the wing, swings around, and now it's literally punching, and it's got the autocannon 20. That puts tremendous pressure on there. So that's an example of a great combination working, because the Warhammer wants to close to danger close and open up. That gets the Hunchback up there trailing behind, and you get that mech behind there. So your thoughts of utilizing a medium mech in Battletech, and how does it work with a lance, and how does it work solo, alone without a lance?